Welcome, everybody. Can you hear me okay, Kālepa?
Good.
All right. Mitakuye Oyasen to all my relations. My name is Annette Lee. I am mixed race Lakota, and my communities are Ojibwe and Dakota Lakota. The soil under my feet is the land we call Minnesota Makoche. Minnesota Makoche, the land where the water reflects the sky, or Minnesota. This is the original home of the Dakota and later Ojibwe people. I acknowledge them, my communities. I want to welcome you to this gathering, and I'm so glad you made it. We are going through a really tough time. This is COVID time, and we will never be the same. There's a lot we can say here, but I think the most important thing is just to pause a moment and acknowledge that we're going through this time of great hardship and acknowledge all those who have died and their families. And I want to say that in spite of this tough time, that we made it here. And even just getting here, especially for some of you students, might have been a huge challenge. So we are so excited that you made it. And what we're doing here is we're creating and we're sharing. And this is our Indigenous star knowledge. So with that, I just want to welcome you to our event. This is Two-Eyed Seeing, Hawaiian Indigenous Astronomy, and NASA Moon to Mars. This is a part of a 7-part series, one live show each month. And this month is March, and so we have the Hawaiian team. And next month we'll have an art and Indigenous astronomy event. I'd like to also say thanks and acknowledgement for NASA, Next Generation STEM, for giving us this opportunity, especially again during this COVID time, to get this Indigenous star knowledge in this way of two-eyed seeing into our classrooms, to our kids and our communities, with our teachers, to our educators. And with that, I want to pass the torch to my friend and colleague, Kālepa Baybayan. Take it away, Kālepa.
All right. Good morning to our audience. Aloha kayaka kako. Today's presentation is entitled Helani Koluna, Hehonua Kolalo, a sky above, earth below. In losing the sight of land, you discover the stars. And so I want to introduce my co-team members, 3 teachers from the Volcano schools of Arts and Sciences, Ms. Jackie Ramirez, Ms. Barbara Sarbin, and Ms. Lisa Barnard. The Volcano School of Arts and Sciences is located in the rural town of Volcano, next to the national parks on Hawaii Island. It serves students in pre-kindergarten to 10th grade. It serves roughly a population of 53% of the student population comes from low-income families, and 46% comes from Native Hawaiians. The school ranges a very large geographical area that spans some 2,500 square miles. And because of this, because it's a rural school, and because the teaching that I was privileged to share with the students, we had issues in connectivity, but the students were all champions, and we surmounted those technology problems as best as possible. The Volcano School of Arts and Sciences mission is is that learning through volcanoes' unique natural and cultural resources to become creative global citizens. His vision is focused on the unique ecosystems and geology of the volcano area, cultivate responsibility for nature and the environment, encourage creative problem solving and critical thinking, and provide a solid academic foundation for all students. And lastly, it's to nurture respect for and understanding of Hawaiian culture. Now, I usually share the presentation space with my daughter Kala Tanaka, and like Jarita Holbrook and Jasmina Holbrook 2 weeks ago shared the space. I truly find it inspiring when I can share the stage with my daughter Kala Tanaka, but because of a medical emergency, she was not able to able to be with us here today, and that brings us to the reason why. This is my grandson Tikauri Tanaka. He just turned 6 years old. About a month ago, he was diagnosed with a fast-growing brain tumor. They medevaced him to Oahu, and they removed the brain tumor. He's been recovering. He is now in Seattle, just beginning proton radiation treatment. He began his chemotherapy this week. He'll be in Seattle for the next 6 weeks. We do have a GoFundMe page, but what I like to invite the audience to do is to read a story by going to Maui Now. It's a digital platform, right? It's called Maui Now, and click on the story about the 5-year-old boy on a long road to recovery. Thank you. So we're going to keep the focus of today's presentation pretty tight. It's about the story of oceanic exploration. And so we're going to begin the story sharing by looking at this concept of two-eyed seeing, right? And then we're going to expand it to ocean voyaging and exploration, wayfinding and navigation, our celestial star compass, the 4 star families, and then lastly we're going to talk about selecting a crew of exploration for either a mission of exploration in space or a mission on a voyaging canoe to settle a new community. And we are going to stop to take questions and answers at specific intervals in the presentation. So if you do have a question, right, you can log in on the Q&A, and Annette will monitor it, and she'll select the most appropriate questions at the appropriate time. So the idea of two-eyed seeing comes from the Mi'kmaq tradition, and it's called Etuaptamak. I'll say that again, Etuaptamak. So we want to thank Carola Knockwood and her elders, Merdina and the late Albert Marshall, for sharing the concept. And what the concept of Etuaptamak, two-eyed seeing, conveys is that two-eyed seeing is learning to see from one eye with strengths of indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strengths of Western knowledge and ways of knowing, and to use both these eyes for the benefit of all. And so I've adapted that saying to a Hawaiian term. I'm calling Ike Makalua, two-eyed seeing. Now the word Ike means to have vision. It speaks about knowledge. The word Ike means to know, to see, to feel, to recognize, to experience, to understand, and to perceive, right? The word Maka means eyes, and Lua means two. So as we unfold today's story, I want the audience to look for specific examples that'll connect the two-eyed seeing to the story we're going to share. And to start us off on this journey of Ike Maka Luan at Etuaptamak, two-eyed seeing, we're going to start by looking at a video. This video speaks to a specific project whereby students that learn through the Hawaiian immersion program and the Hawaiian language college in Hawaii. So students, teachers, and educators work with astronomers where they team up to find new names for recent astronomical discoveries found from the slopes of Mauna Kea and Haleakala.
Whether in a classroom, at the kitchen table, or mingling with friends. The Hawaiian language is once again being heard here in Hawaii.
Aloha mai kako o ka ea ala paike ia makia la pule nei makia aloha koka ko polokalamu o lelo Hawaii. Ma ane ino ka homeo na mele Hawaii, kapa Hawaiian FM.
Ma ke ki'i nui, ma ke make e ulu hoa e ka o lelo Hawaii mana honua nua hou. A o ka au e pekema, ke kahi honua nua hou loa no ka o lelo Hawaii.
As Hawaii's only bilingual informal science center, Imiloa is a beacon of the continued relevance and capacity of the Hawaiian language, even to the science of astronomy and the names given to celestial bodies.
Oiai I ke au kahiko, ua kapa inoa ia, na ano mea like ole. A ua pomaikai, kako, ke au holo okoa, I ke mo'opaa, I ho'opaa ia. No ka mea I leila ka waihona o keia ike ka mea loa ia kākou.
Larry Kimura brings a wealth of knowledge to this process of kapainoa, or the art of creating Hawaiian names, even to new discoveries like this extraordinary asteroid that otherwise would have simply been known as 1I 2017 U1.
No leila, mahape mai I ke wau ho, puni ka honua. I loko o kea au epekema kilo hoku, walilo he mea nui loa. A pela I nono oi wau, o kea ola o ka kako o lelo Hawaii. Ina ale kako e ho maka e nana I ka ho'omau ia I waino o na hanau na hou. Pehea I ke no kea mua aku. Kea hana, kapa inoa.
And so the Ahua Hei Noa initiative was born, bringing together Hawaiian language students with Olelo Hawaii experts and astronomers to learn this art of kapainoa while naming 2 new discoveries.
A ole wau I mana o mua ka hiki ke hakui inoa no ke kahi mea ma Kālepa, ole ke kahi mea e lahai ma o nā aina ea I hiki ke haku ia ma ka Olelo Hawaii. Ke kahi au o ia hana, ke pono e haku I noa, pono pū e a'o a maupopo he aha ia mea e kapa I ana.
Now bring your arms in, out. What do you guys notice when he brings his arms in? Goes faster, right? And so that's the concept of angular momentum.
No lela ua kono ia ke kahi mau kumu a me ke kahi mau kano aka o ke kaiaulu I loa ka ike, mai ka ike ku'una Hawaii a I ka ike e peke maho o ke kilo hoku.
Ka maina wau I ka kako poe keiki ka ko kako poe o ka aina nei. Ma ka maka nui ka manao. A hiki au ke ike, he ike ano malihini loa ke ia. No leila mai kai.
It's the high voltage and very sophisticated equipment. We've got high voltage.
After 2 days of learning and creating, the participants unveiled the 2 new Inoa Hawaii. Ka mo'oa lava refers to the fact that the object is a piece of a larger asteroid that broke off like an offspring, or mo'o, that will now lava or orbit on its own in our solar system. The second object is orbiting near Ka'avela, or Jupiter, but it's almost mischievously going in the opposite direction of Ka'avela. Given that Epa is a word for mischievous, the asteroid was named Ka'epo Ka'avela.
Ano ka po'e kilo hoku o ka honua. A ale paha maa I ka no'ono'o e hana pū me ka po'e oiwi I mea e haku ia ina inoa. Aka ina noi a aina ia mau kaunana ana, he mea nui ka hiki ke ho'ano I ke lapili, kahi I loa mai ai ke ia mau mea. No leila, ke ia ano papahana e like me ahua he inoa, he ke ehina hou ke ia e imi ia e ke ia awili pū ana o na kuana I ke elua.
So that was an example of this concept called Eroaptamunk or Ike Makalua, two-eyed seeing, where we can both bring our traditions and culture into learning that engages science and technology. So we're going to move ahead now into our next module. We're going to start to explore the idea or the history of oceanic exploration, and then we're going to move on to wayfinding and navigation. Okay, so you know the settlement of the planet really began with Homo sapiens escaping the continent of Africa, and the first great human migration around the world was a pedestrian act. Right, people walked to every single location that they could get to by foot. Right, they settled Europe and Asia. They got to the edge of the Southeast Asian continent about 50,000 years ago. And once they encountered the edge of the oceanic continent, right, they had to cross several narrow waterways to get as far as Australia. These waterways were not more than 40 nautical miles wide. It really didn't take any kind of navigational skill because you could see the target ahead of you, and you could probably get there by simply swimming or floating, or by creating some very crude rafts and by tying logs together. But about 50,000 years ago, the water level was a lot lower and the coastlines extended a lot further out from the land masses. And that's why we had these very, very narrow waterways. And so the two continents that we're talking about here is Sunda, which is the Southeast Asian continent, and Sahul, which is the Australian continent. And Australia was joined with New Guinea, and it went out into the northeast toward the Bismarck Archipelago and the Solomon Islands. And so we basically walked to whatever destination we could get to by foot, yeah? And we swam. And this is where humans become aquatic. Yeah, we learn to adapt to living on coastlines. But by about 10,000 years ago, the earth begins to warm. And so those early pedestrian people that walked into the ocean, right, are now permanently trapped because the waterways are a lot more expansive. They've gone from 40 nautical miles to several hundred miles. And because we as humans hadn't developed oceanic technology yet, we are basically stuck in places that we were brought to there by our pedestrian habits. Okay, so 10,000 years ago, in reaction to the rising tides, people living in South China have to change the way they live and the way they farm because the rice fields are beginning to flood. And so they become more adaptive and they begin to explore the marine resources off the coast of China, which eventually leads them to the island of Taiwan. It's important here that I note that Taiwan becomes the oceanic homeland for all other oceanic cultures. All oceanic cultures take their roots back to the island of Taiwan. We speak a language called Austronesian, and Austronesian is the root language for the oceanic peoples. But by about 5,000 years ago, yeah, we have already developed somewhat sophisticated oceanic technology, and we begin to see these voyaging canoes appearing on the horizon. And so with this adaptation or creation of this new voyaging craft, and with the ability to think about how we're going to navigate from island to island, right? That becomes key to how we settle our islands, right? We know the exact path that islanders took throughout Oceania because of the kinds of artifacts they carried with them. Okay, this is lapida pottery. It's a very distinct kind of pottery with this dentate stamping on the outer walls. And pottery, right? Pottery, when you drop it, it breaks. So there's this trail of potsherds that lead out into the ocean, and so they're able to know the exact route that people took. We also understand the study of linguistics and a study of DNA that also can help determine the direction that people moved from Taiwan out into the Pacific Ocean. Right. Also, in terms of artifacts, this is a stone adze, and about 20 years ago, 2 researchers decided to study 17 stone adzes. Stone adzes are made out of basalt, right? But they're taking 17 stone adzes from these coral atolls, right? Coral atolls are different. They're made out of coral. And so the basalt is volcanic. And so what that means is that basaltic stone adze had to be imported into the Tuamotu archipelago. They're going to perform this scientific experiment called plasma mass spectrometry, by which they take a sliver of the stone, they melt it down into its plasmatic state, and when it's in its plasmatic state, they can identify the chemical and mineralogical signature, and they can take that signature and they can take it back to the exact lava flow that it came from. So here in the northeast corner is the island of Napuka. That stone adze came from that tiny atoll. And when they perform this technique called plasma mass spectrometry, what they find is that stone adze began its journey to Napuka, 4,300 kilometers away on the island of Kaolave in the Hawaiian island chain. And this is the island of Kaolave, and it came from a quarry on this spit of land here called Keala'i Kahiki. Keala'i Kahiki, translated from Hawaiian, means the ancestral pathway or the road to Tahiti. And so it's a very significant discovery that confirmed the navigational and voyaging acumen of early oceanic voyagers. Okay, so again, to go through the sequence, right? About 4,000 years ago, they begin moving out of Taiwan. They get to Western Polynesia about 2,300 years ago. Then about 1,000 years ago, they're moving to the north of the Polynesian Triangle, which is made up of Hawaii. 900 years ago, to the island of to Easter Island or Rapa Nui in the southeastern corner of the Polynesian Triangle, and only 800 years ago to Aotearoa, New Zealand. We know that these islanders got as far as Madagascar, off the coast of Africa. Madagascar was never settled by Africans first. It was settled by peoples coming in the Pacific. And they also get to South America. We know they got to South America because of the South American sweet potato. The South American sweet potato is found all throughout the Pacific. And so we know that a canoe load of voyagers must have gotten to South America and brought that sweet potato and redistributed it throughout the Pacific. We also are today finding evidence of Polynesian contact with South America by the study of chicken bones. There's a certain species of Polynesian chicken that we're finding remnants of their bones that was left behind, buried in coastal communities there. Yeah. But again, this was done explicitly through the creation of these huge and fairly complex voyaging crafts called voyaging canoes.
Seven 7,000 years ago, the first really oceanic people came out of China, and it came out of Taiwan. Then you get to Polynesia, this oceanic country bounded by Hawaii in the north and New Zealand in the southwest, and Rapa Nui in the east. 10 million square miles, bigger than Russia. And it was discovered by these extraordinary people. They were really the astronauts of our ancestors. They were the greatest explorers on the face of the earth.
You know, our ancestors not were only just great navigators, they were great stewards of these islands. The time that the first Europeans came, the journals of Captain Cook talked about, you know, large populations, maybe 800,000. That's the median. It could be even higher. It's approaching maybe the numbers of people that are living on Hawaii today. They figured it out, how to live well on these islands, and I think that is the challenge of the time for planet Earth and all of humanity. It's to figure that out. How are you going to do that? Hokulea is pulling us into a direction of asking the question, are you going to be responsible and are you going to take action? Are you going to do something with what you have? You got a voyaging canoe.
Hokulea, to us, to go around the world, has this enormous potential to go to 40, 50 countries on the planet, to be with the great navigators on Earth. And I'm not talking about those in canoes. I'm talking about those who are doing things to give kindness and compassion to the Earth and those who live on it. Those navigators. We're not going to change the world, but we're going to go and build a network of people around the Earth who are going to change it. And our job is to help them be successful.
We're going to go around the world, and we're going to take the risk to do it because the greater risk is to not act. The greater risk is to be apathetic. The greater risk is to remain ignorant, and the greater risk is not to take action.
In 3 years, Hokulea traveled more than 40,000 nautical miles, stopping at over 100 ports of call across 27 nations. Her cruise connected with some of the world's greatest influencers and engaged with those creating innovative solutions to protect our island Earth.
In my humble opinion, the success of the worldwide voyage was really building relationships from strangers from around the world. I watched our crew members. Every single place we went to, everybody that they met was treated with respect and with decency. That was the key and the core to the success of the voyage. That is why we have strangers turn into relationships, and relationships are now coming together as a movement around the same thing, caring values. Mālama honua.
Hokulea returned safely to Hawaii, welcomed by a network of people from around the world who have been inspired by her voyage.
Eyo Hokulea.
What I'm really thinking about more and more now, I'm just imagining, just imagine where Hawaii is going to be in 20 years. I mean, all these kids coming up, they're just going to be extraordinary leaders. What we need to do is stay on course, keep going, move inspiration into action, and really help move the movement of kindness around the Earth so that it starts to have real impact. And you need to do that through your core relationship and build others. And get Mālama Honua off the canoe into the communities. People need to know about what people are doing in classrooms, in our universities, in their backyards, in a coral reef, in the watershed, in our lo'i, in our fish ponds. I mean, we need to just capture the stories. It's going to start to celebrate all these people that people don't know. This is the canoe, and it's our communities are the navigators. I think we're on course. But the voyage ain't over. It's that simple.
So the start of the modern day voyaging revival begins in the early 1970s with the creation, the design, and the construction of the preeminent voyaging canoe that started that revival, the sailing canoe Hokulea. It's a twin-masted voyaging canoe. Hokulea means is the name for the star Arcturus, which is the zenith star for Hawaii. There are three things that we wanted to do. One was to recreate a voyaging canoe. The second was to sail that canoe down a traditional migratory route, such as a route between Hawaii to Tahiti. And then lastly is we wanted to revive or bring back a traditional non-instrument navigator to navigate Hokulea. And in that, we were able to locate in the islands of Micronesia on the small, tiny atoll of Sarawak, we're able to locate master navigator Mao Piailug, who agreed to come to Hawaii and navigate Hokulea on his first initial voyage to Tahiti. In May of 1976, he attempted to sail Hokulea from Maui in the Hawaiian Islands. Took them 31 days to get to the Tuamotu archipelago, and when the canoe arrived there, it was the greatest celebration in over 600 years, as the canoe was greeted by over 20,000 inhabitants of Tahiti. And so the voyage was a success in terms of meeting all its scientific objectives. However, as a social project, it wasn't as successful as the creators had hoped. Just that the trip was so taxing and it was so mentally stressful that things begin to degrade. And by the time they got to Tahiti, Mao had enough of the voyage, and he told the organizer of the voyage that he was supposed to navigate the canoe back from Hawaii, back to Tahiti, from Tahiti to Hawaii. He chose to depart the voyage, and so he left the canoe in Tahiti, and they had to navigate the canoe from Tahiti back to Hawaii using a sextant. Okay, but on board this canoe was a super bright young Hawaiian by the name of Nainoa Thompson, and what he decided to do was to re-engineer the art of navigation, not the art of non-instrument navigation, by choosing academics as the avenue that he would use to pursue that. And so he created a system that's based on math and science. Okay, and he created this system by which he could navigate a canoe using academics as a baseline on a long distance voyage. But about a year and a half before the voyage, Nainoa Thompson was having tremendous issues with the spiritual aspects of going to sea and having to stay up for long periods of time. And so he discussed the problem with his father, and his father told him, well, it's obvious what the solution is you're going to have to go back to Micronesia, and you're going to have to go find Mao and invite Mao back to Hawaii to round out your training. So he did that. He found Mao on the island of Saipan, where Mao had sailed to, and they both met on the beach there. They both were apologetic, Mao for his departure and Nainoa for the behavior of the crew. And Nainoa committed that the crew now is a lot more committed to the goals of the mission and the vision of the voyage. And he invited Mao back to Hawaii. And so Mao came back to Hawaii about a year and a half before Nainoa's planned voyage to Tahiti in the year 1980. And he began Nainoa's formal traditional part of navigation training. And so when they laid their systems out side by side, they were identical, right? Their star compasses were the same. The way they did reckon was the same. It was through a different language, and the way they targeted islands were the same. So basically, Nainoa had reconfirmed the way that Mao wayfinds through academics. And so ever since that coming together of Mao and Nainoa in 1979, wayfinding and the art of non-instrument navigation has just blossomed throughout the South Pacific. It is now standard and institutionalized at our schools. And so since 1980, we have had, well, since 1976, we have had 100% accuracy in finding all our targets or our destinations whenever we travel throughout the ocean. Okay. So, Annette, is there any questions that I can answer at this time, or?
Yeah, we got a few questions going here. We've also got a couple of elders. I wanted to see if they wanted to say hello. Nancy Maryboy, are you out there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. My camera isn't working this morning, so you're just gonna hear me. I want to welcome and thank Kālepa for this wonderful presentation. I've heard him present so many times, and every time I learn so much more. I'm just excited for the audience that's going to be able to hear this, and the ones that will hear it afterwards, just being able to listen to the recording. But what a wonderful presentation, and what a wonderful leader and friend and colleague Kālepa has been to me and to all of our group at Indigenous Education Institute over many, many years. So this is a great pleasure today. And Annette, thank you so much for making it happen.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy.
Pilamia. Yeah, Kālepa, here's a question for you. It says, how has the pandemic affected your work?
Well, our work's gone virtual like everyone else, right? It's hard. It's the pandemic, right? Like right now, we have dry docked Hokulea and her sister canoe Hikianalia. We've had to work in small teams, but I think as of last week, we relaunched the canoe, put her back in the water. We still are troubleshooting if we're going to actually be able to go out and sail because of the protocols around the pandemic with what with the requirements of being 6 feet apart and not meeting in groups of greater than 10. So those are going to put some restrictions on it. But I think in the next 6 months we'll start to unravel our program and get back out on the water. But we have met weekly, sometimes a couple times a week virtually on planning and restructuring and refocusing our organization so that when it's time to go back to sea, we'll be able to hit the water with full sails unfurled. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we've got Jarita on the line, and you were going to say something? Jarita, are you there?
Aloha. I'm here.
Aloha.
I just wanted to say hi, and I want to give this time and space for other people to talk. So thank you so much. I've been enjoying it so much.
So wayfinding and navigation has become generational. So we're now going to turn our heads to the particulars of navigation. We're going to start by watching this video. It's self-explanatory.
When we voyage, I never feel alone. I feel loved. I feel like I'm part of something great. I feel like my kupuna, my ancestors, are there with me. And they're helping me get to my destination. Resailing the roads that we have always sailed. Navigation and wayfinding, that's who we are. The feeling that I have learning this is so empowering. Feeling the refraction of swells as they hit an island and bounce back. The clouds being magnetized towards something where light was not piercing through. The wind, the fishes, the birds, there is a whole story. And they're telling you where you are if you would just listen. Our ancestors were like mountaineers on the ocean. They knew how to get back home so that they could push farther and look for things that were beyond the horizon. As long as you can see a star, as long as you know what star that is and the connection that star shares with you and your direction, you'll always know where to go. The Hawaiian Islands have this mana, have this energy calling to us.
You don't even need to see the island to know that it's there. There's something that transcends realms. The canoe is spiritual, and it connects us to these islands and also to our ancestors. As Hawaiians, as voyagers, we have a deep connection to our environment. And when you sever that connection, we lose part of who we are. And I don't want to do that. All you really need to know where you are is in your mind. And you'll never be lost.
So there are two types of navigation that we do, right? One is wayfinding, which defines what it encompasses all the ways in which people and animals orient themselves in physical space and navigate from place to place. And it also refers to a traditional navigation method used by indigenous people. Non-instrument navigation, which is what Nainoa developed, is based upon academics. It's a math science system. And it basically refers to navigation without the use of any instruments. There are only three things you need to do in wayfinding, right? It's three basically. One is you need to orientate the canoe, so you need a device to tell direction. Second, you need to dead reckon or to locate the vessel along a sail route. And lastly, most importantly, you have to arrive at a destination, which is the idea of expanded landfall, which leads to safe arrival. Okay, so again, the device that we're talking about here that we use is called a sidereal compass. It's different than a magnetic compass. Magnetic compass works by a needle that's magnetized that usually floats on a body of water and points towards magnetic north. What we use is a conceptual device called our star compass. It is made up of 32 stones placed in a circle. The circle represents the horizon. 15 stones represent the rising horizon. 15 stones represent the setting horizon, and 2 stones represent the 2 anchors that the sky turns on, which is north and south. Okay. What we focus our compass on, right? Whereas a magnetic compass focuses on magnetic north, we focus on the one regular celestial body that we see each and every day, and that's the sun, right? Wherever the sun rises or sets, that's called east or hikina on our compass, right? So here's a picture of Nainoa navigating on a vessel, and that little white spot he's looking at is the sun. So he's lining up the waves that roll in from the rising horizon with the sun. He's feeling the wind pressing against his body, and he's also sensing the motion that the canoe makes as it travels across the surface of the sea. So our star compass, again, is what we call it's a 32 house compass. So each one of those words or points is what we call a house. We call them houses because that is where the stars rise and set. Okay. There are 4 cardinal directions of the star compass, right? East is called hikina. The word hiki means to arrive. Okay. Opposite east is the house we call komohana. Right? Komo means to enter, means come into. So you have the arriving hiki and the entering horizon. Those are the only 2 horizons on your compass, and the whole sky turns on these 2 anchors. It's the celestial poles, right? If I put my back towards hikina, I face komohana. If I extend my right hand out from my body, that is called akau. Akau means right or north. If I extend my left hand out from my body, it is called hema or south. So I'm going to teach you the remaining 28 names of the compass, but those names are divided up into 4 quadrants. So it's just 7 names that gets repeated 4 times. Okay, so the first house, and we learned this through hand motion. The first house on either side of hikina and on either side of komohana is la. So we make a circle, and we put the circle above our head. Okay, so la. The second house is called aina. We come down and make it like a flat surface. So la, Aina. The third and fourth houses are for birds. Noyo is a white term that leads you to land. And so we just fly like a bird. So Noyo and Manu. So La, Aina, Noyo, Manu. Okay. The house after Manu is Nalani. And Nalani means the heavens. So we simply point up to the heavens. Nalani. Okay. And then the house after that is Naleo. Naleo means the voices. We cup our hands on either side of our mouth. We go Naleo. So let's go ahead. La, Aina, Noyo, Manu, Nalani, Naleo. And the last house is Haka. Haka is on either side of the celestial poles, Akau and Hema, north and south. And basically that part of the sky is empty. So we just put our hands up on the side of our heads and we just shake them. Haka. Okay, so now we're gonna do the dance with the 32 star houses. We have 4 more houses I gotta teach you motions for. So Hikina, meaning east, we simply stick our hands out and we raise them. So Hikina, so rising. And then the opposite of Hikina is Komohana, entering. We just lower our hands, okay? So Hikina, Komohana. Hikina, Komohana. And left and right is, Hema is left, so we raise our left hand up. And Akau is right, we raise our right hand up. So Hema, Akau, Akau, Hema. Okay, we will do the 32 house dance now. Maybe I'll do it standing up. Okay, everybody ready? Ready in Hawaiian is called Makakau. And when I say holo, that means we begin, okay? So Makakau, holo, Hikina, La, Aina, Noyo, Manu, Nalani, Naleo, Haka, Hema, Haka, Naleo, Nalani, Manu, Noyo, Aina, La, Komohana, La, Aina, Noyo, Manu, Nalani, Naleo, Haka, Akau, Haka, Naleo, Nalani, Manu, Noyo, Aina, La, and we're back to east and the rising, Hikina. Okay, good job. Good job, okay. This is the way the compass works, right? Celestial bodies move from one horizon to the next in parallel tracks. If a star rises in the east, it's gonna move towards the west, right? Towards Komohana. If it rises in a house we call Noyo, it's gonna move across in the same hemisphere from Noyo to Noyo. If it rises here in the south, in the house we call Aina, it's gonna move across to Aina, okay? But this compass is also a big mirror and it reflects from quadrants to quadrants. So you can incorporate the direction of the wind and the waves by knowing that it works the same way. If the wind enters the compass, in the house we call Manu, in the quadrant we call Kola, it's going to move through you in the center of the canoe, or if you're standing on the canoe, it's going to move underneath your feet, and it's going to exit the same house it came in from, but only in the opposite quadrant. So if it enters here in the house we call Manu, it's going to exit in the house we call Manu. If it enters here in the house we call Manu in the southeast, it's going to exit the compass in the direction we call Manu in the northwest. Okay, it's real critical that for the compass to work, you need to understand what stars mark the exact each house on the horizon of the compass. And so our navigation is visual, right? We take information in through the eyes. So again, what we need to understand is where the stars fit, right? So you need to understand the night sky, and you need to understand what stars identify what house. So I'm going to move through what we call the 4 star families. What we've done, the voyages, is we've taken the 88 constellations, the recognized constellations by the IAU, and we've narrowed it down to only 4, and 4 star families, right? Each star family appears every 6 hours in the night sky, and they run from basically north to south, right? The 4 star families are Kekau Makali, the Baylor of Makali, Ka'ivi Kuamo, the backbone, Manai Akalani, the chiefly fishing line, and Kalupia Kavelo, the kite of Kavelo. And the way we learn this is through a chant. So me, I will call out to you and I will say, hey, ohi ohi inapono, right? And you're gonna reply, right? The audience will reply, he ka, he iwi, he makau, he lupi. A baler, a bone, a fishuk, a kite. And we're gonna all reply together, wulaku ka ipu aka ho kele. Okay, so again, makakau means ready. So makakau, holo. He ohi ohi inapono. He ka, he iwi,
he makau,
he lupe. Walaku
ka ipu a kaho o
kele.
Okay, one more time. Makakau, holo. He ohi ohi inapono. He ka,
he iwi, he makau, he lupe. Ipu a ka ho'okele.
Right. So the first line is voyagers, gather up your possessions. Your reply is a baler, a bone, a fishhook, a kite. That is what each one of those star families that appear every 6 hours in the night sky. And then we all collectively say, the gourd of the navigator is provision. Because Hawaiians used to keep their most prized possessions within the insides of a storage container, and these are usually gourds. So this is the first star family, right? It's called the Ka of Makali, the baler. A baler is a tool used to bail water out of the bottom of a canoe, and it is made up of what you look for. You can see it right now in the east, rising or up above the horizon. You look for Orion's belt, yeah, Orion's belt, the 3 stars of Orion. Very distinct, very easy to see. That's what you're looking for, that big image. Then you look towards the northeast, and it makes like a scoop that goes from Capella or Hokule down to Castor and Pollux, the twins of Gemini, Nana Mua, Nana Hope, down here to Little Dog, yeah, Procyon or Puana, and then to the brightest star in the night sky. The brightest star in the night sky is Sirius or A'a, which makes the handle that ties off to Canopus. You can't see Canopus, I think, in a lot of places of the United States, but Canopus makes the handle. Now we're going to talk about the center of this star family, which is Orion, and the 3 stars in Orion, right? If you take a line south, it points towards Sirius, but if you take a line northeast through the 3 stars, it points towards this constellation we call the Pleiades. Now the Pleiades, and this is to answer Mike Dolan's question. Mike Dolan was someone that submitted a question online, and he was raised in Hawaii and was educated in Hawaii. Now he was asking about the importance of Makali or the Pleiades in oceanic history. Makali is the most well-known star constellation throughout the Pacific. Every culture has a Makali'i story, and it's either in Hawaii it's Makali, in New Zealand it's Matariki, in Tahiti it's Makari'i. So it's just different versions, but this star is important, although it's not a real obvious constellation. It looks like a smudged thumbprint when you look at it, very, very small, but yet every single culture has a Makali star, and all the stories has to hover around or pertain to the harvest season. So it has to do with identifying when the harvest season starts. In Hawaii, we celebrate the harvest season from October, but the actual celebrations around Makali or the Makahiki, the annual event, is when you see the Pleiades or Makali rising after sunset, and that happens around the beginning of November. Okay, the next star line is Ka'ivi Kuamo. Again, we're looking for distinct star patterns, right? This star pattern that we recognize here is the 7, right? Nahiko, the Big Dipper, right? The 2 stars in the bucket of the Big Dipper points towards Polaris, if you come off the tail of the Big Dipper, the handle, if you draw a line between the handle of the Big Dipper, it points towards this star here called Hokulea. Hokulea is a zenith star. It's not just the name of the canoe, but it's the zenith star for Hawaii. It passes right over Volcano School, by the way. Okay, and then in the southern, here's the celestial equator right between these two stars. But the sister pair star for Hokulea is Hikianali or Spica. Okay, you come up to the little box called Corvus, and Corvus, if you draw a line through the middle of Corvus, it points towards the top of the Southern Cross. Hanaya Kamalama. Okay. The next star line is called Manaya Kalani, the chiefly fishing line. What's important to note is that this triangle in the north represents a spool of fishing line that you circle around to the top of the fish hook, and it's fishing after Sagittarius off to the barb of the fish hook. And this is the fish hook here, right? You see that. And this is Sagittarius here. And this dusty area in the night sky is the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Center of the Milky Way galaxy is right through the heart of Sagittarius, right? And lastly is Kalupia Covelo, the kite of Covelo. And the kite of Covelo is made up of the 4 stars of the Great Square of Pegasus. So now we're going to bring in some experts to talk about navigation.
So I asked Nainona Thompson how his ancestors were able to navigate so well by the stars, right? So let's check it out.
So you guys must have known the stars really well. And I mean, I use my tools to remind me where they rise and set and where to expect them. But if you don't have the tools, then it's in you somehow. And then you navigate with them. So how do you do that?
Okay. I mean, one issue is to even be able to identify and pick out stars and memorize that that's a specific star. It's an identification.
Right, because a star isolated is nothing. There's a context,
right,
a pattern that you have to, so pattern recognition matters.
Right.
Yeah.
But because you can find the star in the sky, it doesn't tell you anything about navigation. You need to know primarily where it rises and sets.
Okay.
And so there is this mental construct called the star compass.
Star compass, I like that.
It's as if you're a satellite looking down at the ocean's horizon, and there's a canoe in the center of this big circle. And in the circle is that circle, that edge.
So I got the circle. All right, here we go.
And it's divided into 32 star houses. Maybe north is here, south is here, east is here, west is there. And there's 7 star houses in each quadrant.
Okay,
And so let's say this is the eastern horizon. So you can take a star and identify it, but you need to know what star house it is. Like Mintaka in Orion's belt, rises due east, comes across the sky and sets due west, or any of the stars.
Right, okay. So you've split the perimeter, the horizon, into these places.
If you can identify the star, and if you know what star house it rises in, you can hold direction. So if you want to go east, you go straight towards Mintaka.
Well, that would be easy, right, okay.
If you want to go west, you go straight away from Mintaka.
And any place in between, you can know the rest of the stars to make that happen.
And we line them up on pieces of wood on the canoe. There's actually a canoe compass that is on the deck that makes the 32 houses. So we actually, if you have the star compass, we're turning the canoe compass in the star compass and lining up different stars with different parts of the canoe to hold the desired heading.
So that brings us to the conclusion of the star knowledge section, but we're going to talk about the idea of directing. We use our hands. You probably saw this on the movie Moana, where the actress uses her hands to measure the horizon. We calibrate our hand for the amount of degrees from our thumb to the tips of our fingers. It's an example of that. And this is an example of Nainoa using his hands. And what we do is we use our hands up against a star field, which allows us to measure the altitude of stars. Like right there at the top of his finger is the star Polaris. So Polaris for the latitude of Hawaii is about a handspan above the horizon. And then in the south, we like to use the Southern Cross. This is the Southern Cross in meridian, right? Meridian is the center of the night sky. It runs from celestial south to celestial north. Hawaiians were able to mark the meridian by creating a device for aligning the meridian. It's called a notch wall. It's on the south coast of Maui. And here's a picture of the notch wall with the Southern Cross above it. Again, and there's a second way you can measure the horizon. It's with the small hand or the hand on its side. The bottom of the hand is on the surface of the ocean, and this is the bottom hand up against the star field. Okay, but for finding the latitude of Hawaii, there's an exact way, and that involves the Southern Cross. What we call this is equidistant pairs. When you leave Tahiti, here's the Southern Cross and meridian. The Southern Cross and meridian is way up in the night sky, but every night you sail to Hawaii, it gets closer and closer. When these two stars, the top star and the bottom star in the Southern Cross, become equal to the horizon, that is when the top star and the bottom star is the same distance to the horizon, you're at the latitude of the Hawaiian Islands. This is called equidistant pairs, right? So here's the Southern Cross, and it's rising, right, in the east, in the southeast, and it's climbing. It's climbing in the night sky. Then it gets to its meridian, and then you measure it. It's about 2.5 fingers between the bottom star and the top star. When you can measure 2.5 fingers between the top star and bottom star on the horizon, you're at the latitude of the Hawaiian Islands. Okay, and what's really important about that is that you need to be able to tell when you're going to arrive at islands so that you can begin your land hunt. This is again targeting the islands. Okay, the height of the stars will tell you when you're getting closer. But the birds, these white birds, the noyo, right, or the manuaku, are prime examples of you being in the range of islands. You start to see these birds every single time I've sailed to the South Pacific. I always see these birds about 3 days out from finding land, right? And so we post lookouts along the edges of the canoe as we're approaching land, right? Right. In the tropics, everything moves in from the east. The winds all come from the east, so they're blowing one steady direction, right? Right. The wind's blowing from the east. You simply get down to the latitude of the islands, and then you turn your canoe down to the houses we call aina. Aina means land, right? As long as you're sailing towards a land house, you're gonna get blown into the direction of the islands. Okay, we are now going to take some questions, and then we're going to turn it over to the last module.
Okay, Kālepa, I got some good questions here from the Q&A. Here's a couple of quick ones. How many people were on Hokulea?
Yeah, it ranges, right? The longer the trip, the less people you want to take. The shorter the trip, the more people you want to take. It's all about creating opportunity for people on board. So crew sizes can range from as little as 10 up into 16 or 18 people. Yeah.
Okay. What are the next projects that will help continue the vision of Hokulea?
The next project is an ambitious sail around the Pacific. Going around the edge of the Pacific is a lot further than going around the entire planet. So we'll start in Hawaii and sail to the South Pacific, but we'll take the canoe eventually and start the voyage in Alaska, probably in Juneau, and then sail down the north coast of North America, down to South America, then across the ocean, all the way across the South Pacific to Australia, back up to Indonesia, the Philippines, Taiwan, Japan, and then all the way back up around the Aleutian Islands and all the way to end the trip in Juneau. That's what we're planning.
When is that?
That is as soon as the COVID issue is dealt with, we will start the plan. We're in the strategizing phases right now. We don't have any money to fund the project, but that's never stopped us from doing anything.
Okay, Jarita and Jasmina has a question maybe.
Hey, Jasmina. How are you?
I have a question. So,
Sure.
when did women start being allowed to go on these voyages on the canoes?
they started going on these voyages from the very beginning of the trips in 1976.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, the first two women sailed in 1976.
So of course I want to know when your daughter started voyaging with you.
My daughter started voyaging with me about I think about 15 years ago. Let me think. Yeah, in around 1997. She was in her early 20s. She actually, her way to get on board that canoe was she talked to my mother, and my mother came to me and says, "You need to take your daughter with you." And of course, I can't say no to my mom. So, yeah. The first, but I tell you what my first experience with my daughter on the canoe was. She was really afraid because she was the only girl on the canoe. It was all boys, all men, right? And the first night out on the ocean, I was on the front of the canoe, and I told her to come up here and sit next to me on the bow of the canoe and listen to the water. And she heard the splashing, and she asked me, "Well, what's that?" I said, "That's the dolphins. The dolphins have come to play with us." And so we're being circled by a pod of dolphins in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Great. Yeah. Okay.
Kālepa, do you have time for one more question, or you want to keep rolling and take?
No. We'll take one more question because.
Okay, this is a really good one. Discuss how your relationship with the sky has evolved since you've been engaged with Hokulea.
My relationship with the sky. I mean, my relationship with the sky, when I began, I was a simple novice, right? I was a simple novice. I was just learning about the names of the night sky because when I was invited in to train under Nainoa, I needed to have how do you converse with someone who's so knowledgeable? So I had to learn the night sky. So I've come to understand the night sky. Now I see the whole picture of the night sky. In those 20 or 30 years that I was learning, I was super stressed at all the material you had to learn. But once you navigate long on your own for the first time, you become super confident, and it produces this certain feeling of independence. Now, today I'm super confident. I don't need very much startup time to prepare for a voyage. Okay.
Great.
Okay. So now I'd like to bring on our teachers who are gonna bring us to the end of the program. And I'm gonna invite Barbara Sarbin to talk about the Kula Amakihi program.
Mahalo, Kālepa. Aloha, everyone. This has been an amazing hour so far, and it's been an incredible honor to work with Kālepa for the past few months with our Kula Amakihi program at the Volcano School of Arts and Sciences. And just to say that Kula Amakihi is a wide-ranging community-based education program that engages children from first grade through 8th grade. And of course, during the pandemic, we have been on Zoom. And so every Friday we met with Kālepa for an hour, and everything that he's taught you in 1 hour, we did hour after hour after hour, week after week after week. And luckily, as things began to open up again, we were able to engage in person, not with Kālepa, but on our own, bringing families and children together out in nature, out into the national park, where we are, Volcanoes National Park, to bring alive, using our senses, using our bodies, the understandings of the Hawaiian star compass. So we went to many sacred sites and important historical sites in Hawaiian history and the history of navigation in order to lay out our star compass on the earth and get our bodies oriented towards the 4 directions, practice the chant for the star families, and then go off exploring. And as part of that, also engaging in the NASA Moon to Mars curriculum activity plans, in which we created writings about going to the moon, choosing a crew, and you're going to see now the results of some of that in what the children created. So the first thing is a video that was created by one of our Kula Amakihi students named Miley, who's in 5th grade. And she created this video as a kind of a reflection on what we've been doing together in the way of hands-on, in-person, in nature, working with the teachings of Kālepa. So I'll turn it back to Kālepa now to show the video.
Kunihi kamona I kala ie, o wai ale ale lai wai lua. Hu kia elai kalani kapapa awai o kawai kini. A lai ia elai no no nalo kaipu a kalola moko kapaae. Mai pa I ka leo he ole ka hea mai ne. That was Kunihi, a welcoming chant, asking permission to enter. Aloha. My name is Miley, and I am in the Kula Amakihi program at Volcano School of Arts and Sciences. Kula Amakihi met at South Point and set up this compass. That was the first time we did this out in nature instead of just on a Zoom call. Miss Barbara drew the circle to start building a traditional Hawaiian ground compass. That is the way that Hawaiians would navigate when they were on land. You can tell how to make the ground compass by first figuring out where east is. Directly across from that is west, and in between them are north and south. The Hawaiian word for east is hikina, the word for west is komohana, north is akau, and south is hama. To get more specific, we place 7 rocks, or houses, in between the 4 cardinal directions. La, Aina, Noyo, Manu, Naleo, Nalani, and Haka. I'll come back to those later. Every time we do one of these trips, we always make sure to clean up any garbage that we find, doing our malama to take care of the Aina. Sadly, we found lots of microplastics on the beach at South Point. If a honu, or turtle, eats the microplastic, it will stay with them forever. And a fish that eats a fish that has eaten plastic will also get that plastic, on and on and on up the food chain, even to us. We sometimes found petroglyphs in tide pools. Maybe they were made by ancient Hawaiians. Another time, we went to Mauna Ulu in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. We wanted to imagine choosing a crew as if we were on the moon or on Mars, exploring like we were up in space with the Perseverance rover. We started by setting up a ground compass, and we gathered lava rocks. Whenever we create a ground compass, we say the Star Families chant. E ohi ohi ina pono, he ka, he iwi, he makau, he lupe, ua lako ka ipu aka ho'okele. Then we went exploring, imagining who would be on the crew with us. We thought we'd like to go to space with friends, or at least people who we got along with, people who were resourceful. We needed someone who knew how to repair the ship. We needed a good cook. We also thought it would be good for people on the crew to have a good sense of humor. And we would definitely need someone who knows how to navigate. After that, we went exploring some more and found lots of lava tubes, and places where the lava had fallen away. Then we hiked to a lookout so we could get a better view of the terrain. There was even an old-fashioned metal compass on top of the lookout, although it wasn't as ancient as our ground compass. Finally, we went on a field trip to Hole Sea Arch. We set about making our last ground compass. Finding rocks in a flat space was a little challenging, but we managed. Once again, we figured out where the sun had risen from, and set up the 4 cardinal directions and the 7 other houses. We made the appropriate hand gestures and said the names of the houses as we placed their rocks. To do La, you make a circle with your hands. La means sun. To do Aina, you spread your palms down to represent the land. To do Noyo, you stretch one arm towards the sky, signifying the first bird. And for Manu, you stretch the other towards the sky, which signifies the other bird. For Naleo, you cup your hands like you're going to shout, because Naleo means the voices. For Nalani, you stretch your arms towards the sky, for Nalani translates to the heavens. Last, for Haka, you look at your empty hands, for Haka means emptiness. Afterwards, we explored like always. It may look like it, but it's not an ocean of lava. Mahalo, Miss Barbara, for taking us on these amazing field trips, and mahalo Kālepa for teaching us about native Hawaiian navigation.
And mahalo Miley for sharing. So we're going to turn the page now on the presentation, and we're going to talk about our moon pod lesson. But before we get started, I'm going to show this quick video that kind of summarizes the relationship that astronauts and voyagers have.
Alrighty, Hawaii's voyaging canoe, the Hokulea, arrived in Titusville, Florida today.
And that's just west of the Kennedy Space Center, where crew members will hold a special ceremony tomorrow honoring Hawaii's first two astronauts, Ellison Onizuka and Lacey Veach.
As Kathy Manano tells us, for Hokulea Captain Nainoa Thompson, it has an even deeper meaning, as he'll be honoring one of his best friends.
Mission Control's wake-up call for the Space Shuttle Columbia flying over Hawaii in 1992.
Aloha, Columbia. Good morning. Hano, Hawaii. Aloha, Houston.
On board, Punahou graduate Lieutenant Colonel Lacey Veach, buoyed constantly by his love for Hawaii. He once smuggled on board this ads. You see Hawaii Island through the window? That's where the ads is from, passed down through his family.
He had a great affection for Hawaii and for the people, and always wanted to promote it.
Nainoa Thompson and Lacey became fast friends and hatched a plan for a three-way call. Lacey in the space shuttle, Nainoa on the spaceship of ancestors, Hokulea in the South Pacific, both fielding questions from children in Hawaii and broadcast to hundreds of classrooms.
What do you think are the similarities and differences between the shuttle and the Hokulea's mission? Over.
They are both voyages of exploration. The shuttle and Hokulea are trying to make contributions to mankind. The shuttle does it through science and technology. We do it through culture and history.
Nainoa says it's when Veach saw Hawaii from space that he knew Hawaii holds the answer to a beautiful, sustainable, and caring Earth. And it was Lacey's idea. He planted the seed for Hokulea to sail around the world.
I'm having a really hard time with Lacey.
Emotions run deep as Hokulea arrived near the Kennedy Space Center Tuesday. Lacey succumbed to cancer 3 years after his 92 shuttle mission at the age of 51. His family says he would have loved this day.
It was almost as if he was just walking along with us, and I could hear him saying, "This is great. This is great." You know, I mean, it was like he was there. It was very overwhelming, though.
I think he would have felt that the circle was being completed.
So it's very personal for me to come here to honor our two great explorers, the best from Hawaii, but also honor the families and to thank them at the place that they flew from.
Kathy Munano,
Hano, Hawaii. Aloha, Houston.
KHON2 News.
Well, thanks, Lisa and Jackie. And now to wrap things up, we're going to take a look at crew selection for the Artemis team.
At NASA, we have always answered the innate call to go.
With Artemis,
we are going to stay.
proving that humanity
can live on the moon,
Mars,
and other worlds,
and share the wonders of the solar system with all.
Our story is one of people.
all those who make this journey possible.
From advocates across communities, to companies across industries,
to countries around the world,
we achieve
this collective endeavor.
Our efforts create impact for all.
Technologies that revolutionize industries.
And jobs that bring prosperity to people.
The discoveries from space
benefit the way we live on Earth today.
And those from the moon
will create a better future
for generations to come.
But to do that,
we must go.
Hi, I'm Chell Ingram. My name is Raja Chari.
Kayla Barron.
Kate Rubens. Hi, I'm Christina Cook.
NASA astronaut Joe Akaba.
Jessica Amir.
Woody Hoberg.
Anne McLean.
Stephanie Wilson.
My name is Johnny Kim.
Nicole Mann.
Victor Glover.
Jessica Watkins.
Hi, I'm Matthew Dominic.
Jasmine Mogbelli.
Frank Rubio.
Scott Tingle.
This is what we do. This is what we will do.
Let's go.
We go to the moon to learn how to live on other planets.
For the benefit of all.
Right on. That's our Artemis crew, and they will be heading off to the moon in 2024. And so we're just about at about 90 minutes. We're going to wrap things up here. I'm going to show you this one segment about life in space.
Hello, I'm ESA astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti. Welcome to Node 1, the place where we prepare our meals and eat up here on the International Space Station. I would like to show you one of my favorite meals up here, which is a chicken turmeric with champignon mushrooms, brown rice, and peas. And I would like to try and put the ingredients together for you, see how it works in space. Well, first of all, we don't have a plate. It wouldn't make much sense. So I'm gonna try and use a tortilla instead of a plate. We have plenty of those. They're kind of handy up here because they don't make crumbles, which are a little bit of a problem. And then I want to make sure that the ingredients stick to the tortilla. So I'm gonna start by spreading some peas cream. I have already heated the food pouches with the ingredients in the food warmer. So this is my first ingredient, peas. And this is one of the most important tools up here in space when it comes to the kitchen, a scissor to open the food pouch. So I'm gonna spread it on the tortilla. It's kind of hot. Okay, next I will add brown rice. It's whole rice, it's not refined, so a great source of good carbs. Next I will add some champignon mushrooms. And finally, my chicken with turmeric. There we go. It's not too bad considering that we are in weightlessness. Pretty yummy to me. Now, together with this video, you will also find a video that shows how to make this recipe in a normal earth kitchen. In fact, I was taught how to prepare this recipe by the chef who prepared these space pouches for me, Stefano Polato. And you will find the list of ingredients and all the instructions. So maybe you want to try it in your kitchen, maybe with your family next weekend. If you do so, please make sure that you send us a picture or a little video, and we'll enjoy watching that. Very good.
And now we can go to Q&A, and wow, that went by fast.
Oh yeah, lots of great content, Kālepa. Thanks so much for sharing. There's a bunch of questions too, and I know Isabel Hawkins was on the line. She had several questions. Maybe she had to go though. I don't see her on there.
I'm here.
Oh, Elizabeth, fantastic. Can you?
Isabel.
Hi,
Isabel. Isabel.
Hi, Isabel.
Good to.
You had some great questions. Please.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Kālepa, for this amazing presentation, and your colleagues, your teacher colleagues, who really brought to life the learning that's happening today with the students in Hawaii. Thank you so much. It's very inspiring. And thank you, Annette, for making this possible. I had a couple of questions, one for you, Kālepa, and perhaps one for the teachers. So the one for you is whether, when you're out in the ocean with a canoe, whether the zenith passage of the sun is of use to you as a navigator in wayfinding.
Not really. It's only a use for me in telling time, right? But we don't really use the zenith. And you're talking about the zenith passage, or you talking? I'm thinking about the meridian when it crosses the celestial meridian. So
yeah, I'm more talking about when the shadows disappear.
Oh, when the shadows disappear. So like high noon. I mean, in terms of telling time, we really don't pay attention to the sun's not so important when it's high in the sky. The sun's most important for us guys when it's about 3 hours before, 3 hours after sunrise, up from sunrise to 3 hours after sunrise, and then from 3 hours, like let's say if the sun's setting at 6 p.m., then from 3 hours before that, because then we can use the sun as a good bearing to figure out direction, because it's close enough to the horizon that we can figure out where it's setting. So when the sun's high in the sky, it's of no practical use for our navigation. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, hi, Isabel. I can see you.
Hi, now we can see each other. This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Annette, for the opportunity to say hi.
Thanks for all your good work, Isabel. You've been, you're part of this community. You've been doing all kinds, and still are. You have a great series as well. Something happening tomorrow.
Thank you. And for the teachers, how important is the Hawaiian language in terms of having the students really understand the navigation and the worldview of living in the islands?
I would say that it is super important. Our school is working really hard on learning more. We have, free class for the teachers. We have a couple of experts, Uncle Moku and Ku Thompson, who work with our students and have classes with our students. It's just something that's an ongoing thing for some of us who are not born in Hawaii. It's really something that we need to focus on. So, and it makes everything that we do more connected, more complete.
Yeah, and I think in terms of a lot of the navigational technology too, like Kālepa was amazing at sharing with us some of the intricate meanings. Hawaiian is one of those language where one syllable or one word can have so many connected meanings. So like, for example, we were learning about Hoku Pa'a, the North Star, and Hoku is star and Pa'a is kind of stuck. So it really helps to illustrate the concept, that the North Star is the one that's stuck in the sky. So the two go hand in hand, absolutely. It's a great help to have the vocabulary and the language along with the scientific and the wayfinding.
Yeah, I would agree totally that the bilingual aspect is super important from a cultural perspective, family, spiritual perspective. There's so many levels in which it's essential. And our school is a Hawaiian focused charter school. So it's because about half of the students are Native Hawaiian, it's extremely important that we're incorporating and integrating the language and the culture and the ways in everything we teach.
That's great. Thank you. And thanks for teaching us the
motions. Thank you. The navigation.
That was awesome. Thank you.
It's called a navigation hula. Okay, Isabel.
Okay, so we got another couple quick questions here. Are kids allowed on the voyage? What website should they go to see the ports for this next voyage, and how long does it last? So it's kind of 3 quick questions.
Okay, so the next voyage, we haven't advertised it yet, but you can go to hokulea.com, HOKULEA.com, and it'll be posted there. What we invite others who can't physically be on the canoe to experience the canoe to what we call the third canoe. And the third canoe is our digital platform. And that's how we're hoping to engage a lot of our supporters and a lot of people who just want to learn about not just oceanic wayfinding, but how we care and steward for this planet.
Awesome. And what about the kids? Are kids allowed on the voyage?
Well, they're allowed, right? They're allowed on the voyage through participating through the third canoe. We normally don't take anyone under the age of 18 to physically traverse large sections of any ocean, but we've taken out younger students on coastal offshore sails. So there'll be ways for them to participate. And usually when we pull into port, we normally host education fairs and canoe tours and open houses. So there'll be ways for people to actually visit and physically get aboard the canoe as we sail around the Pacific Rim.
Okay, here's another good one. Do you feel the water temperature to guide you when you're in the canoe? And do you stop and go swimming?
No, first of all, we don't stop, but we don't swim while the canoe is traveling. It's just one thing about being in the salt water is that it gets you to super thirsty and you end up consuming more water. And there's always the danger of sharks or some type of predator fish out there. So while we're out there sailing, we're not swimming. And what was the other part of the question?
Do you feel the water temperature to guide you?
Oh, the water
Do you
temperature.
use the water?
Well, I tell you what, you know when you're north of Hawaii because every day you take a shower in a bucket of salt water, it gets colder and colder to the point where you don't longer want to take a bath. Well, to the point where it gets hard to take a bath.
Okay, we've got a collaborator here from UC Santa Cruz. Raja, are you able to talk? Maybe.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I can show if I can find the button, you can talk. Show the camera too.
Sure, I'd love to. So while you're doing that, I wanted to say that I did not have the privilege of being born in Hawaii. But Hawaii has embraced me in other ways, and I'm very grateful and privileged to feel that connection to Hawaii. My work has brought me to Hawaii many times. At the University of California at Santa Cruz, I have the privilege of
lost us.
Has really been embraced by the beautiful, oh, there we go. Okay, here I am. I'm sitting with my beautiful campus as a backdrop, but
wow.
let me,
Beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. I not as beautiful as Hawaii, though, of course, not as beautiful. This is my beautiful telescope. This is my beautiful campus. We have a blue whale skeleton on our campus.
Oh, cool.
But I really feel very fortunate to have this connection with Annette. Through Annette, I've been, and with Jarita. Jarita is someone whose scientific journey I was part of. And through Jarita, I've been part of Annette's scientific journey. But I wanted to say that this idea of two-eyed seeing is so powerful that I've become a believer. There's no better word for it than to say I've become a believer in this last month of talking to Annette and Jarita. And what I'd like to do is be there to offer opportunities to Hawaiian high school students from the Volcano School and other schools in Hawaii, so that they can be part of our journey as we use the Keck telescopes on Mauna Kea and the Lick telescopes in Hawaii. This is a silver lining of COVID-19. We are using these telescopes from our living rooms. Our computers are able to access telescopes on faraway mountains now in a way that they couldn't before. This is entirely because of COVID-19. We want to offer that opportunity to students, especially to young students for whom we want them to be part of this experience. So this is the collaboration I'm on with Annette and Jarita. In fact, tomorrow night, some of our students are going to be using a telescope in California in this way. And just one more thing I wanted to say, one other amazing connection I have with Hawaii is through Heather Kaluna. She is, Heather was my student when she was an undergraduate. She did her undergraduate thesis with me. And as you know, she's the first person of Hawaiian descent to get a PhD in astronomy from the University of Hawaii. And she's been an amazing part of my journey. You'd think that a professor should learn from his undergraduate student. It's been completely the other way around. I've learned so much from her.
Yeah.
Thanks, Raja. Go ahead.
She's a great friend of mine, Heather is.
Wonderful.
So we have, I'll be posting more information on the Native Skywatchers Starry Night collaboration. And I had mentioned this before, but I think we were all kind of focused on getting this event ready, so it just kind of went off the radar. But it's a great collaboration that Raja is supporting through Native Skywatchers, and to really get opportunities, make pathways for, especially for our Indigenous kids, our students, and educators, just like you. Okay, so Kālepa, what do you think? Thanks, Raja. Are you getting tired? Should we wrap it up? Maybe I could bring up those final slides here. I've got a couple final slides. Here we go. Okay. Can you see this one? So this is to tell everybody, of course, mahalo, thank you, pilamia, miigwech. We worked hard to create this for you. And for the students especially, and go on the www.nativeskywatchers.org, and then you'll see the project web page for Hawaiian Indigenous Astronomy, and there you can scroll down and you'll be able to see the resources. So a lot of time and energy went into creating a booklet, and these are some pages out of the booklet. You can see a lot of the stuff that we talked about, also with links. And there's a ton of really good work being done at Imiloa. And so you should definitely go on their website. Really great work. And so the other thing, I just want to remind you that we do have one more event as part of this Native Skywatchers Two-Eyed Seeing series. And this will be an art focus, Indigenous Astronomy, and NASA Moon to Mars. And I think we're going to have a bonus month with Arabic Indigenous Astronomy that next month in May. Yeah, so we're really rolling and really appreciative to have this opportunity. And speaking of that, I wanted to ask one quick question to the teachers. I don't know if you have the words, but if you could speak to, how do you think having this kind of opportunity was, spoke directly to the students in terms of engagement and their Indigenous identity, and being able to have a person like Kālepa, a master navigator in residence, to be in their schools, maybe remotely, but to really be taking the time. How transformative has that been? And also for you as educators at this terrible time of crisis and COVID, how hard and challenging has it been to be a part of this collaborative type work that's, just brand new and kind of wide open? Can you speak to that experience maybe?
I think that's a big question. There's so much to say around that. It's hard to figure out where to jump in. I mean, it really is incredible, first of all, just to have Kālepa's expertise. I mean, like all of those years are so, the thing, I've been studying the Hawaiian compass for a few years on my own, just through the Hokulea website and all of the incredible resources that are available online. And it has never made sense to me personally, the way it does when Kālepa describes it. And then we go away for a week and I study it and then I get lost again. And then just to hear him talk and speak is so inspiring, and it just makes connections that I think otherwise without him we would not be able to make. And I see that with our kids as well, like they just and then having this regular biweekly, weekly connection with him makes their role, the possibilities for exploration and navigation for them so much more tangible, as well as just the information being so much better delivered through Kālepa every Friday. So I can't say enough thanks to him. And I know my students have gained so much just from his experience. And he's been kind enough to share so much with us and let us record the Friday Zooms that we're able to pass on that knowledge to future, classes too, as time goes on. So just immeasurable.
The kids have been so inspired, and I hear them talking about it in between meetings. I see some of them in person, just a few, but when they come in, just being able to do some of the activities and learn the Hawaiian, and the gestures and the words, and I think they've really incorporated it into themselves. And I think especially with young children, for them to be able to understand it at a more physical, visceral, elemental level, they may not know what an amazing experience it is entirely, but it's going to become part of them. And it's going to, it's going to resonate for a long time with them for the rest of their lives. So, and
I would,
for us too.
Yeah, I was going to add, as a teacher, not being from Hawaii, it was the most incredible honor to be brought into these understandings by someone who has this lifelong dedication and passion to it, and is passing this on. And, to a certain degree, all of the technical aspects, the math involved, the science involved, that's very complex. And I couldn't really access that, but I could access the star compass hula. I could do that. And I could do that with my students, and the language and the words and the connections that were made. And I would say I will never see or experience the stars in the same way ever again as a result of this. I have a completely different relationship with the horizon and with the night sky. Such a much greater value for the movements of the stars. So I would just say one thing for the students as an analogy is this idea of locating yourself in space, of not losing your way, of having this guidance, this compass. It goes much deeper than just the physical.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Really good insights. That's one of the things I noticed too. It's because when we do the motions and the chanting, it's in our bodies and it's not just in our minds like we're reading it on a page. And it's this idea that we actually become part of the compass, that if we're facing west, our right hand, the word for right hand is the same as the word for north, right? So it's like we become calibrated with the compass and calibrated with those four directions, earth and sky. So I really felt that power when I was there in person with Kālepa when he was teaching. So, okay, Kālepa, should we wrap it up? Do you have some closing words? Or
well, I'd just like to thank the audience for their participation, and I was glad to share the space with my three colleagues from Volcano Schools, Barbara, Jackie, and Ms. Lisa. And to you, Annette, thank you for doing and inviting us into your circle and for giving us this opportunity to share. And it was a great experience for all of us. So thank you. Mahalo. Mahalo anui loa.
And to close, I want to say Kālepa taught me many things, but one thing I remember he said that the way Hawaiians conduct business is always with dance and song. Right, Kālepa?
That's right.
We're going to have that exit music in just 1 second, but I was going to say one of the things that really inspires me when I listen to your talk, like what Nancy was saying, it's so powerful. And each time I'm just on the edge of my seat, taking it in, learning more each time. But I want to say one point, and that is this idea of knowing the history. That history isn't something long ago and completely separated and done from what's happening today, but it is a part of this living story. And I think it's this idea of knowing the past so that we could learn from like mistakes, so then we can like inform and make better choices, take action for the present, right? And then it creates something meaningful for the future. It's like we need all three of those pieces for the 7 generations, right? That we're a part of this legacy, past, present, future, 7 generations, both ways. So I always feel that when I hear you talking, Kālepa, because your story talk is deeply rooted in that history as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else had burning closing remarks? Give me a second to grab my my exit music.
I needed to say thank you for a few people.
Oh, please do, please do.
Yes, I wanted to say a tremendous thank you. Mahalo, I'm so sorry. I'm choked up here. Mahalo nui to our principal, Kalima Kinney, for holding and focusing the vision for her Ike, for our Kula Almakihi program, and for her holding us to our promise of being a Hawaiian-focused school. And I'd also like to acknowledge that this is the 20-year anniversary of the founding of Volcano School. And without our vision of a place-based and project-based school and partnerships with mentor organizations like Imiloa and mentors like Kālepa, this incredible learning adventure would not have been possible. Mahalo to Miss Barbara and Miss Jackie and our wonderful students, all our wonderful students who were in the virtual canoe with us this year. And even so, we're willing to explore and imagine and see into the past and the future, because we look into the past when we look at the stars, and to look across the ocean and into the stars. Mahalo to NASA, Annette, and Native Skywatchers, Imiloa and Kālepa, and for an extraordinary, out of this world, two-eyed seeing experience. Mahalo.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? We're ready for the closing music. Okay. I want to say one thing is I always said when we started Native Skywatchers, our motto was building community around the native star knowledge. And though we started out with our own communities, Ojibwe and Dakota Lakota, I want to say today it's building community around the Indigenous star knowledge. And we include all our relations all over the world. And I feel really proud and honored to be sitting at the Zoom fire with each of you, and for all the people on this Zoom webinar that many people are part of this community, and there's a lot of work to do. So Pilamia. Okay, I'm going to bring this music up as best I can here.
Mahalo, Pilamia.
Kamalua kaniu holua enna me samoani ala pui mai nei itala hai yo samalua kaniu holua enna me samoani ala
That was amazing. That was
Okay.
absolutely amazing.
Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.